It's DTS 189, and we have Crimson Day feedback. The TWAB talks about faction rally changes, and exotics getting more exotic-y-er. All that and more coming up.
You're listening to Destiny, the show.
What's good, everybody, and welcome to Destiny, the show, the Destiny news podcast that keeps you, the Guardian, ahead of the curve in the world of Destiny. I am BBKDRAGOON. I am joined, as always, by my great co-host, Ditty. What is up, man? How are you doing?
Doing very well. Had a busy week last week, and this weekend I tried a new recipe. I guess not really recipe, but you know, fried pickles, right?
Yes.
Do you like fried pickles?
I've had them a handful of times, and yes, I do.
I think they're the greatest appetizer in the world. Fight me on that. But we don't have a fryer, and last time I tried to deep fry something, I learned that vegetable oil ignites at 450 degrees. And then, so that's a whole nother story for another time. But in the oven, you can just bake them, right? You just bread them like you normally do. You can bake them at 450, 425 for 15 minutes, and they are delicious. And that's what I've been doing. The first time we did it, of course, it was really smoky in the apartment. We didn't have a window open, and the fire alarms went off, of course. But no fire, just a lot of smoke, and they were delicious.
That sounds very good. Now, you know not to put water on a grease fire, right?
Right, yeah. So when that happened, when I learned that fateful lesson, I covered it, and I picked up the whole thing and just moved it out to the balcony and set it on the ground. And it made a little burn ring on the patio out there. But yes, smother a grease fire.
You smother it. Yeah, I don't know about the carrying it through your apartment, which has carpet flooring.
I had to be very careful. But yeah, I just needed to get the smoky.
I think taking it outside was a risk. I think you grab the baking soda and you smother that guy.
Yeah, I kind of did both, but it was just so smoky and it was just hot, and I didn't want it in the kitchen, so I just...
Fire outside.
Yes, fire outside.
Oh, my word. Listeners, if you are making something with oil, do not take any advice from this program. We are not qualified individuals to give you tips on that. Ask your parents.
Make sure you have a fire extinguisher.
Yeah, that too.
Because we didn't have one at the time.
Let's talk about the show this week, because we had Crimson Days. We have the TWAB, which touched on exotic changes that Wysanewski and his team are working on, and faction rally stuff. It's not a really big show, but I look forward to talking especially about our Crimson Days feedback, and also weighing in from listeners and hearing what they have to say about the event. Talking with some folks through Discord, I got sort of a tepid response. Mainly, yeah, it was pretty fun, but, you know, nothing more than that. You know, it's just pretty fun to come back for a few days, but not really enough to yank you around the corner back into the game daily, kind of a deal. So,
yeah.
Speaking of that Crimson Days feedback, Ditty, I want to pick your brain. We really haven't talked about what we've thought about it, you and I. Let's hit on the high points first. I think the reward system, the knockout list specifically, is probably the best reward system, I think, in a Destiny event to date. Your thoughts?
I would agree, yeah. Being able to grind the levels, the milestones, the matches, getting those Crimson Engrams, and then the loot that you get from that not being an option in the next one that you get, having that lockout feature was a really great implementation. I think it gave players more of an opportunity to get every single piece of gear. Now, it was still a grind to get every piece of gear, right? Because they don't want to make it easy.
You would have had to play quite a bit of
you've had to play quite a bit, right? Or, you know, got lucky. And it was just, you know, I really liked that feature. Please, more of that.
I was lucky and got the exotic sparrow to drop pretty early on within my matches, which was nice. I really enjoy that idea of the knockout list, especially when you can just peer into Eververse and see, okay, here's all the stuff for this particular event that I can look for. Not buy from Eververse, okay? No. But actually just see, all right, this is what's on the table. Let's go play. And I know I'm not going to be getting any duplicate rewards. This was, however, a reminder for me that Destiny 2 feels like a pretty loot-starved game. Where's the killer rewards at? Where are they, Ditty? Because I can't help but feeling meh about all these event rewards. They just all look like reskins to me.
I mean, yeah, so the saturation of the cosmetic rewards from the events is, in my opinion, definitely a negative. I would have loved to see a Crimson Days exclusive hand cannon or sidearm or sniper rifle or something that, you know, is a limited time drop. You know, kind of like the original OG vanilla Destiny Queen's Wrath. Those weapons, they didn't bring them back until maybe House of Wolves, and even then it was just an iteration of its former self. You know, I want more limited time items, right? And I don't know. I think we need less cosmetics and more unique weapons.
It's an interesting reverse. I really thought there would be armor sets associated with this, right?
Yes.
Maybe some ornaments alongside of it. We obviously have some pretty cool shaders that came about with this. You have the ornaments for the exotic weapons. I was talking mainly armor ornaments there. The emotes were great, but transmat effects and shaders and ghosts that pretty much look the same, I don't know, it just wasn't resonating enough with me to come back and play more Crimson Days. For transparency's sake, I only played, I think, 2 days of Crimson Days, and then I was right back into Monster Hunter World, just because I'm enjoying that game so much right now. So are we getting to the point where we want to actually see some more Destiny, let's say Destiny 1 kind of, wow, what a great legendary reward? Because the legendaries in D2 definitely don't hit home with me like most of the legendaries did in D1.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that sentiment. I mean, I want to be excited about a drop. I haven't had that in a really long time. You know, the last time I had a really exciting loot drop, it was in Warframe, right? I talked about it a few weeks ago. It was the Dread blueprint that I finally got on my, I'm a new character, new player to the game. And in Destiny 2, I haven't had that real excitement, except I guess from my first Orpheus rigs drop on the PlayStation. I heard about it, and when I finally got the Orpheus rigs, I was like, yes, this is awesome. I played a few public events. I was really excited to use those exotics. I don't use any other exotics in the game. That's the only one, in my opinion. But nothing else is really that level or that Galahorn level. We need that Galahorn level legendary or exotic weapon drop there.
Yeah, I mean, unfair question. Do you remember your first legendary in D1? What was it?
I do not. No.
I do. Dr. Nope. You totally blew my point. Doggone it. I was going to say, everybody remembers that first legendary.
You said
in
Destiny
D1.
2, right?
No, I said D1. I think.
D1? Okay, then I misheard you. So D1, yes, I do remember. It was the Zombie Apocalypse Heavy Machine Gun. RIP Heavy Machine Guns. I want those back. But yeah, my first exotic in Destiny 1 was Crest of Alpha Lupi chest piece for the Hunter.
Game type. Since you talked about exotics there for a moment, what did you think about the game type? I bring that up because the exotic Shinobu's Vow was something that I was seeing all the time. Arcnades, oh wow. I
actually got the Shinobu's Vow as a drop from one of my Crimson Days matches.
Yeah.
Or like, I got an exotic engram, then I decrypted it and it was Shinobu's Vow. And I hadn't had that before on the PC. And I was just thinking, man, it is so frustrating to play against the nade spam in this playlist. I wish I had Shinobu's Vow.
I want to join the ranks.
And then I got it, and then I'm like, okay, guess I have to use Arcstrider now. And so I switched to Arcstrider, and of course, I hadn't unlocked the whole subclass yet because I just play Night Stalker ever since I got the Orpheus rigs. So I had to unlock the nodes, and then, man, being able to throw nades every 5 or 6 seconds is a lot of fun. It's super frustrating to play against, but it's a lot of fun when you get those kills.
Yeah. Warlocks are not without blame either. I may be frustrated here with the Shinobu hunters, but oh my gosh, the Arc Soul lightning warlocks. It's just Arc Soul, Arc Soul, Arc Soul, and then the lightning nades. Just it was throwing matches between two sets of people hugging one another, throwing grenades. I had fun. I think the game type maybe would benefit, honestly, from a perk that awards flanking, that awards maybe not huddling up too closely. I know thematically it makes more sense to huddle up close, and I don't want to get too crazy in depth criticizing what is a pretty one-off event, right? I don't think they meant for players to really think much about it, just to go have fun and spam abilities. But I did reach a fatigue point where I was like, I'm done just throwing nades around the corner, waiting for them to throw nades around the corner, and then collapse in on that one person. Even though you had that, was it the vengeance buff or whatever?
Right.
The two guys, especially if they're close together and having abilities continually up, you're not going to be winning many 1v2s in that playlist.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with the thematic part of, oh, you need to be close to your teammate, right? It's Crimson Days. It's all about your partner. And the frustrating thing was the opposite side of that. When you were away from them, you got a waypoint above your head for the enemy team to find you.
Yes.
One of the frustrations, right? I want to say I did have fun with the playlist. It was fun just throwing nades because I'd like to throw grenades all the time. But one of the main frustrations I had was when I would spawn across the map for my teammate. There is a debuff, right? There is a window of when the waypoint is not active, for me to run across the map to get to my teammate. But after about 5 or 6 seconds after that passes by, right, if my teammate goes down, waypoint above my head until my teammate spawns. And it's just, I don't know. It seems a little unfair, but of course, thematically, it makes a little bit more sense in the playlist. By the way, the Burning Shrine remake, I loved it. I thought it was really great.
Yeah, I did too. No Bright Sun. I think it was a nice addition to their remakes. I'd love to see some more original maps. I don't know if Burning Shrine, Shores of Time were designed with Destiny 2 balance in mind. And I don't have a great argument for or against it, but I'd love to see maybe some more originals in there. The question I want to ask, is this a good enough event to bring back lapsed players? Obviously, by the time people are listening, it's kind of over. But I would say no. I think it was a fun one-off, but Bungie needs to nail the upcoming Sandbox update, upcoming Nightfall scoring update, Expansion 2, all of that in a row with no hiccups, I think, before you can start thinking about bringing back those lapsed players. And we're talking like people who don't really watch YouTube all that much, most of the folks who probably bought and put it down within a month or two.
Yeah, I would agree. I think you're right. Bungie's reliability or reputation is not great right now in terms of Destiny updates. And if, like you said, if they nail the next 3 or 4 updates in a row with no major hiccups, I think then we can start to be excited about new content, right? Because I'm going to, again, agree with you here. I don't think Crimson Days was enough to bring players back. And that was probably not the intent, right? It was just a nice event for current players, people who are still playing the game. And it's nice for you and I who, we take these little breaks, play other great games out right now, and then come back to Destiny for some nice little bit of fresh new content for a couple days, and then put it down again to, play the expansive universe of other games that are out there right now. And I thought it was really nice for a few days, but, then I was at another game after that.
Yep. Well, we'd love to hear what our listeners have to think about Crimson Days. Throw us some feedback in our Discord, discord.me/Destiny the Show, or send us a tweet over at Destiny the Show. Ditty hotfix came and went. What did they do with this hotfix, and how does it relate to the upcoming faction rally?
Yeah, so this hotfix was 1.1.2.1. It came out last week on February 13th. This was in preparation for the new faction rallies, which of course is coming in the next week or two, February 20th. We'll get to that in just a second in the TWAB, this week actually. And they removed the Lost Sectors throttles that they introduced in the previous faction rally. So players may now, I'm quoting in the article here, players may now open a Lost Sector chest once per boss defeated. There you go.
Yep. Yeah, you're not going to be farming Lost Sectors anymore, it sounds like. So the throttle is gone, but now you beat the ultra of the Lost Sector, you collect the reward, and that's it, I'm assuming, for the duration of that particular faction rally event. You can still go to public events, you can still go to strikes and PvP, but it doesn't look like they want you rinse repeating Lost Sectors anymore.
Yeah. They probably see a statistic for what event is completed during the faction rally to get those tokens, and Lost Sectors were just a huge majority, right? And so they're kind of making it even across the plains now.
All right, challenge accepted, community. Find another cheese. Do it.
It'll take a day. Less than a day.
That's right. It'll just be another area of the game that they're like, oh yeah, you can get a token for every 6 minutes here, and That's great for me. Now we're just going to do it 18 times. You multiply by this, you use this weapon here, and the frame rate adjusted on the PC, and boom, 60 billion tokens right there. I don't know what I think of this change. What do you think of the change? Do you care?
I mean, anything to really even out the reward ratio to the time invested in that event to get the reward. I think, someone who didn't do Lost Sectors 1,800 times in a week to get the Faction Rally tokens would feel that their time was more worthwhile,
Yep. Couple or 3 new weapons added to the reward pool, like they were talking about, right? You've got the Dead Orbit Linear Fusion, Future War Colt Hand Cannon, and the new Monarchy Scout. And the weapons at the end of the event for the winners will be New Monarchy for a Pulse, Dead Orbit Pulse, and Future War Colt Scout Rifle. Threw me for a loop there. Who's winning this one? Ditty, place your bets.
I don't think Future War Colt's going to win one. I don't. With this reward, I don't think so. It's got to be well, I do have a Future War Colt Scout right now that's actually really good, like Mida tier good.
Yeah.
But nah. I think Dead Orbit's going to win because just from the picture, the Dead Orbit Pulse Rifle looks like the Lincoln Green. And that is the Grasp of Malik tier of Pulse Rifle. Fastest fire rate, lowest impact. So maybe I think that's going to be the one to win.
Recoil that pulls horizontally right.
Yes.
I reviewed that back in the console days, and it was like, with the right setup, there are some people who swear by Lincoln Green and who love it, and I've enjoyed it from time to time. It's just go to a wall, let the thing rip, don't control the recoil at all, and just check it out. That thing pulls so hard to the right. I can't remember any Destiny 1 gun that pulled that hard, like directly to the right. So we had Wisniewski step into the picture to talk about the Exotic Sandbox update that they're working on. A couple of the highlights that I'll paraphrase here. Obviously, they want to make some of the underused exotics more used, more prevalent, and more exotic-er. And in order to do that, they're focusing on leading into the exotics playstyle currently, like its current branch or perk, and pushing that further instead of a broad buff to all of the exotics that would distinguish the unique identity of each one of them. So you wouldn't just across the board say, all right, every exotic now deals 15% more damage. They're going to be looking at specifically the perk set alongside of those weapons and say, what can we do to enhance the unique identity of this and make it more exotic? The example that they used was the Graviton Lance, which, Diddy, do you want to mention what they're planning on doing here?
Yeah, absolutely. They briefly touched on a few of the improvements that they've made to the Graviton Lance. Obviously, this was a more hyped reward or weapon, and it fell short of its expectation on launch. So the improvements that they're thinking about making or have already made that they'll introduce later on, they're reduce the recoil of the burst. They're going to add some aim assist there, and they're going to change the burst to 2 rounds. Now, the Graviton Lance, of course, the third bullet in the burst, originally is the one that deals the more damage, right? They're changing it to 2 bursts there. And they're doing the ragdoll effect that now floats back and up on the enemy, of course. And this will help equal a bigger explosion, increased damage, and they've added void projectiles that seek out remaining targets. So think of like an Axiom Bolt effect to that pulse. And I think that's really unique, right? That takes the exotic perk of the Graviton Lance and makes it better, right? It makes it more specific. And I think that's going to be really nice to see.
I almost think it sounds like a mini Nova Bomb, right? With the little Seeker Nova Bombs. That's what the picture I get, which is really cool. And I like this idea quite a bit. Across the board, at the time of writing this, Wisniewski says the weapons that are not getting an update are Merciless, Telesto, Ward Cliff Coil, Mida Multi-Tool, Colony, Legend of Acrius, and Vigilance Wing. Now, do note when he's talking about that, he inferred that Vigilance Wing already has good usage statistics and that it will be seeing changes due to the overall balance update that will be coming to the game as well. So if, you're using a pulse rifle, maybe pulse rifles across the board are going to see a buff. So they might not need to touch some of these certain weapons within here knowing the sandbox stuff that they're having to work and test around with. I can't help but feel I want a world, Ditty, where there are PvE perks and PvP perks, because if you have a world where you can go absolutely bonkers with your weapons and making them the most exotic, coolest Destiny mysticism ever and not have to worry about how they're balanced in PvP, I think you improve the game. I think the sooner Bungie recognizes we can split the two spaces, I know it's a huge pillar of them, that your Guardian is your Guardian regardless of where you go. I think there's a happy middle ground where PvE perks on exotics are insane, yet you don't have to worry about it becoming a balance issue in PvP. You just don't let that perk become active or whatever in PvP.
Yep. Agreed. 100%. I mean, balance PvE and PvP different, right? Everyone's been saying that forever, right? Since the inception of Destiny, right? And I'm really happy that they're taking this approach to all the exotics, and that approach is increasing the power and the utility of all the exotics, as opposed to, okay, this exotic is used in 60% of games, I'm going to bring that down. No. They're looking at bringing all the other stuff up to a similar level, and I really like that approach. Now, of course, in practice, we'll see how it works, and can't wait to see the numbers on some of these things.
Absolutely. Yeah, and what I'm mentioning too is probably a logistical nightmare, and it's quite easy for me to say, just do it, without knowing all of the technical framework behind what makes Destiny actually tick. But just know it's a sentiment, I think, like you said, Ditty, a lot of people have said since the early days of Destiny 1. Let the PvE go nuts, and let some of these not be active in PvP so you don't have to worry about how X affects Y. You know, World of Warcraft for the longest time had to skirt that balance between your talent trees. Things that are geared to make raiding a better experience, but that could be abused in PvP or vice versa. And they finally just made an entire tree for PvP only. Now, that's different in Destiny because of the gear aspect, but I throw it into the argument because reasons.
Yeah, that just made me remember of one of the first changes they made PvE versus PvP-wise in Destiny 1 when they buffed shotguns against non-Guardian combatants by 200%.
Yeah.
Lurker Zero, friend of the show, and we just ran around the strikes with universal remote and a secondary shotgun, double shotguns in PvE, and it was the most fun I ever had. It was awesome. I want that level of fun again in PvE.
So that's all the main news coming down the pipeline for this week in Destiny, but we've had a email from a listener of the show that we've been putting off now for almost a month because it's almost February 24th, which is crazy. And we wanted to answer that here on the program. This comes from Mineser23, and he says, hey, BBK and Ditty, first off, love the show. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. It definitely keeps me ahead of the curve in the world of Destiny. I was listening to your most recent podcast, and I enjoyed it, as I always do. However, with all the negativity surrounding Bungie and D2 currently, I thought it would be interesting to look back and listen to some of the earlier podcasts, like the one leading up to the beta, number 158, talking about the Destiny 2 beta. And man, I could hear it in your voices and commentary. You were fanboys of the game and the franchise just like I was, with all the excitement and giddiness exuding with every mention of the awesomeness to come with Destiny 2. We were all, at that time, so ready to love Destiny 2 and everything about it. New maps, new modes, new content, new ways to experience those experiences. Bungie had everyone primed and ready to love their game. It was a formula for success that doesn't get any easier to execute. The question I have is, how did they just let all that slip away with minimal effort put in to get us 100% back? Mind-boggling. Well, I think that I rambled enough. Keep up the good work. Peace, Mineser23. Thank you, Mineser, for all the compliments. It is much appreciated. He is a Titan. No Titan love on this show. Ditty and I are Warlock and Hunter. But I love Titan in D1, so there you go. All right, Ditty. So I think to sum it up, there was a ton of hype coming into Destiny 2. They seemed like Bungie had all the momentum in the world. How did it go wrong? And I want to hear your response first, because I'm probably going to be more argumentative with Mineser's question.
I think, man, leading up to Destiny 2 launch, it's kind of hard to think back now, right? Knowing all that we know now, it's kind of hard to think of all the hype that was leading up, like towards the end of the summer, right?
Yes.
And that's the issue, right? It's it's getting lost in the hype and not being able to set an expectation appropriately on both the community and Bungie's side. I think the marketing of Destiny 2 was far and away a huge success, right? And wait for my thought to finish on this before we start talking about that. I think the marketing really sold this game, and everyone bought it on the marketing and the hype, and it did not live up to its expectations, right? I think the marketing saw the game and said, man, I need to make this game sound awesome so that I can do my job and I can get my paycheck. And then they did a really great job, so everyone bought the game because Age of Triumph, right? That was the high of Destiny, right? It was so great. It was such a great time to play Destiny, to get into Destiny, to learn the universe. And man, that expectation was not met. And I think that's really where, the execution of Destiny 2 launch is where, everything just fell apart.
I'll highlight a sentence that stood out at the end of your question. I'm going to kind of be unfair here and just be ultra critical. Mine, sir. When you say it was a formula for success that doesn't get any easier to execute. With expectations come an exceptional amount of pressure. Now, I think there's two sides of the coin here. If Bungie were to go in a risk-free manner, an expansion like The Taken King that preserved most of the content from Destiny 1, yet brought with it the tried and true pillars of what The Taken King success was, right? We've got new activities, lots of new gear, new story to pursue, as well as like a new raid, but doesn't completely invalidate all of the previous experiences. I think that safe route, D2, would have enjoyed much more success. It would have carried with it a lot of the baggage and the problems that Destiny 1 had, but I think as a community, we would have ended up being happier. In order for something like a game on this scale to succeed, there is an immense amount that has to go correctly. So I don't think it was that easy for them to execute, right? I don't think it's a formula for success that you couldn't go wrong with, kind of like what you phrased. I think you very easily could go wrong. And I'm not defending Bungie in this because, honestly, I don't understand a lot of the design decisions that they made with Destiny 2. It seems like a lot of the regular players of the game kind of scratch their head at Bungie and go, you guys spent the first 3 years really figuring this out. You finally were getting it, and it feels like you threw it all away with the launch of Destiny 2, and we're starting over again instead of using those lessons learned from the past. So all I can think of is struggles internally with Bungie at a management level. If you've ever worked on a big creative project and there's hundreds of people at Bungie. I've never worked on a project with hundreds of people, dozens, but never hundreds.
Right.
If the management isn't a well-oiled machine and that leadership isn't driving the crew towards the right objectives and directions, I think you have what happens with Destiny 2, where D2, first 35 hours, I thought was a fantastic game. But Destiny is not one of those games that you just play for 30 hours and put down.
Mm-mm.
It's an investment game. It's a lifestyle game. It's a game that Activision wants you engaging with day in, day out, week after week, because then you're more likely to purchase into the expansions and support the franchise through microtransactions. Your thoughts, Ditty?
I think on the note of the formula for success, right? I think one of the issues was Bungie internally, right? They had the word sequel. Destiny 2 is a sequel, not an expansion, not DLC. It's a full sequel. I think that got into too many people's heads, and they tried to make it something new while keeping, the same universe and everything. And I don't think they should have done that this time around, right? It's really easy to say it should have just been another expansion to Destiny, right? They shouldn't have done a full sequel, because with the sequel, the notion of a sequel, it comes with the reworks, the reboots, all that kind of other things, whereas an expansion would just, build on the existing foundation. And so I think what really killed it was the notion that it was a full sequel and not just another expansion.
and didn't have the content to justify a sequel, had less than what we were previously playing. Imagine if World of Warcraft 2 got announced, and that's coming out next year. The expectations for WoW 2 would be unreal, would be ridiculous. Like, you would have to think of this game.
Half-Life 3 is a real-world example of that. Like, there was so much hype behind that, and there's just like, anything we do is not going to live up to an expectation. So,
well, and imagine if WoW 2 came out with less content than what people are playing now in WoW 1. You're ultimately going to be like, why didn't you just make this an expansion? It's a really tricky task to be like, all right, throw away everything we made in D1 over these last 3 years. We now need to release the sequel. The expectations are higher than what people were currently playing, which was the Age of Triumph era. And that just, even if Bungie nailed every aspect of it, those are going to be hard expectations to land. And they did not. It's like I said, they forgot a lot of the lessons from the first 3 years, it seemed like.
The community expected a sequel because Bungie sold us a sequel, and it feels like an expansion. And that's where the miscommunication is. That's where the expectation did not meet reality. If we were expecting a DLC, I think it would have gone over better than what we have now.
I have to wonder, too, if D1 released on PC, I would likely still play it. Honestly, I think I would still probably play D1 from maybe not. I mean, we'd run out of momentum at this point because we played Destiny 1 a ton.
Right.
But I just throw that into the mix. It's a good question, though. I appreciate that he sent that to us. And yeah, it stirs up a lot of thought and discussion for sure. With all that said, Ditty, I think we wrap the show up there. Where can people find your content?
Twitter.com/Ditty, DTS, DITTY, DTS, and YouTube.com/Wooshness, WOOOSHNESS.
Follow us on Twitter at Destiny the Show. You can follow me on YouTube and Twitter and Twitch at BBKDRAGOON. Thank you very much for listening, Guardians. Have a great week, and we will talk with you next time.